I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're exploring mystical healing, Navajo traditions, and a life transformed through faith, culture, and medicine. We're talking about a powerful memoir. It is called Medicine and Miracles in the High Desert. It's written by a terrific author and medical doctor. Her name is Erica Elliott, and she shares her extraordinary experiences living among the Navajo people as a teacher, a healer, and a witness to spiritual phenomena. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Bookside Press for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. I'm very happy to be here.
It's an honor to have you on the show. Your memoir is a beautiful memoir of a life well lived and very unique as well. What led you originally to the Navajo reservation back in 1971?
It was against all logic, and nobody understood why I chose to go to a remote area in the United States with and teach at a boarding school, because boarding schools for Native Americans had a terrible reputation of being cruel to their students.
Mm.
And I knew that, and I wanted to make a difference. So I chose there, even though it wasn't a totally logical decision. It was more deep intuition that that's where I needed to go.
I think the best decisions in life are often made not out of logic, but out of intuition and emotion and those sensibilities. How did your understanding of the Navajo people evolve during your time there?
I went from being just like the other teachers, completely ignorant about Navajo culture. The school, even though it was progressive, it wasn't cruel. They weren't mean and tortured the kids or sexually molested them.
Mm.
So I was lucky about that. But so
So I guess as you
I
got more immersed in the culture, more
yeah,
immersed in the children.
so what happened was in the beginning, the kids did not relate to me, just like the other teachers. The other teachers didn't have a good image of the children, unfortunately.
Mm.
And I wasn't like that. I didn't have a preconceived idea that they were just hopeless and stuff. I really tried hard to make contact, but I couldn't. They didn't talk to me. I found out later from my teacher aide, she said, "I want to help you. I can see you're different from the other children, the other
Other
teachers,
teachers.
and I want to help you understand Navajo culture so you'll see why the children don't look at you and don't talk to you. It's because they're very shy and they're
Mhm.
showing respect to you. Because to look you in the eye, that's what white people do. But for them, traditional Navajos, that's a sign of aggression,
Mm.
unless you're close friends. And so she said they don't speak English because the teaching was so bad, and they had materials that the kids couldn't relate to, like Dick and Jane and stuff. And also, they had to often leave the boarding school and go to their remote homes and help with sheep herding or a newborn baby or something. And she said, what will really make a difference is if I teach you a few words in Navajo, then the kids will see that you're really trying hard and
Mm.
they'll warm up to you. So she taught me how to say, "Good morning, my children. My name is Erica Elliott. What's your name? Where do you come from?" And listening to Navajo, oh my God, it was like worse than Chinese. It was so difficult. And I'm a multilingual, and so even I'm a polyglot. But even
Mhm.
for me, it was really outrageously difficult with sounds that are impossible. So I walked in the next day. I know I must have sounded ridiculous. I said, "Yat eshal chine shi'e Erica Elliott yinishe nishachach inye chatenana." And everyone looked up at me for the first time and they burst out laughing. And that was the beginning of a love affair. And I
Wonderful.
started learning more and more and more Navajo. And each weekend, I took a different kid because this was they wanted me to do, to their remote home in my four-wheel drive, way into the canyon. Canyon de Chelly is one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Mhm.
And I started using my Navajo. And even though I probably made a fool out of myself, they loved it. They completely accepted me into their home, their hearts, their ceremony. And I got to see things that white people never see,
Yeah.
never.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like adopted, so to speak, by a couple families. And one of them belonged to the Native American church, which is the peyote ceremony. And it's illegal for white people to go, but they said that I was a Navajo in my heart. And so
That's very
they
nice.
said,
It's beautiful.
yeah. And so they dressed me up in they said I could not do the ceremony, the peyote ceremony, in white man's clothes. So they dressed me up in a velvet blouse and satin skirt. I mean, I looked like
Amazing.
I was going to the Navajo prom or something. I-
It's
And
amazing.
so what happened in that first ceremony is hard to explain. I
Mhm.
had a physicist eventually explain to me what happened, but I was just beginning to learn Navajo. And my Navajo mother sat next to me and she said, when the sacred tobacco comes around and you pray, just pass it on. She spoke English and she said, just pass it on. And when the sacred drum comes, the water drum, and you're supposed to sing a song, just pass it on.
Mm.
And so we took the peyote in three different forms, the tea, the powder, and then the bud. And I felt, ugh, I'm gonna throw up. And they said it's good to throw up because it's the evil coming out of you. And I thought, oh, I don't want to throw up, and they'll know I'm evil. And so I tried to
It's
swallow it.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's
And so,
amazing the power of learning. Go ahead.
so I was just gonna say, they were praying and praying and praying, and and then when she had my mother had the sacred tobacco, and then she handed it to me and said, just pass it on. I didn't pass it on. I and then I said a prayer in Navajo, and
Wow.
I thought in myself, this is hallucination. This cannot be happening. And the other part said, no, this is more real than real life. This
Hmm.
is really happening. And so I just didn't know what was going on. And I passed it on. And then when the drum came around, she said, pass it on. And I didn't. And I
Hmm.
pounded on the water drum and I sang, hey, nay, young, yo, hey, yo. I'd never heard of this, this thing. And after the whole peyote ceremony was over, we sat in the house next door on the floor, what we
Hmm.
always do, and a big spread of, mutton stew and fry bread and canned peaches. And the roadman started talking to me in Navajo. By this time, the peyote had worn off, and and he was talking up a storm in Navajo, and I didn't understand what he was saying. And finally, I said, I don't speak Navajo. And
Hmm.
everybody burst out laughing and they said, You talk Navajo the whole time. I said, How can that be?
That's funny.
A physicist explained it to me later how that happened. And
Hmm.
I can tell you if you want, or just,
Sure, if you want to explain how it
Oh,
happened, that's
okay.
an
So at a
interesting
reading,
phenomenon.
somebody said, how do you explain what happened? And I said, if you want me to be totally truthful, I don't know. And
Hmm.
I just don't know what happened, but it was real. I didn't make it up. And
Yeah.
a guy in the audience stood up and said, I'm a physicist at Los Alamos Labs, and I'm a quantum physicist, and I can easily explain what happened to you. He said, in quantum physics, everything is, quote,
Hmm.
out there. The past, the present, the future, all knowledge that anyone had is out there. And the peyote gave you a window to access what was out there, because normally we live in a small box. We think that's our whole reality, this very small box. And it's not. The reality is infinite, but we can't access it. And when you're a baby, you do have access to that, but then the neurons, the body prunes the neurons. Otherwise, become psychotic, being aware of everything at once.
Just
So
overwhelmed.
yeah, overwhelming,
Yeah.
overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah.
And many things happen in the ceremonies, like healing, instant healing, and of babies and me. I had a tumor that
Hmm.
disappeared. How do I
Wow.
explain that? I can't. And to this day, I keep going like this to see this is 55 years ago, and make sure that it hasn't come back. And
Amazing.
yeah, and so I
Amazing the beauty of embracing a culture by showing respect, by learning a few words in the
yeah,
language,
yeah,
that it opened up a porthole to you that you would never have experienced before, a side of
yeah,
life you never would have experienced, right?
yes. I'd like to tell you one more story. It's
Sure.
the mountain lion story, and it's the
Absolutely.
theme through all three of my memoirs. This was what we're talking about is my first memoir. I'm finishing up my third memoir,
Mm,
and the theme of the mountain lion goes throughout the whole, all three memoirs. So I was camping. I'm a real nature girl, and I was
mm,
camping by myself, which I love, deep in the Utah wilderness on a weekend when I didn't have to teach school. And it was a full moon, and I was sort of traipsing around the red rocks, just absolutely ecstatically in beauty. And
mm,
then it was time to go to bed. I laid my mat down and my sleeping bag and fell asleep. And I had the weirdest dream.
mm,
I dreamt that I was helping the Navajo family with their billy goats because they're not supposed to mate at a certain time. You're supposed to hold them apart from the females until it's the time for mating. And I, in my dream, that the billy goats were ready to mate, and they had this terribly strong smell of their hormones called pheromones, and it
mm,
smelled so bad. And then I thought, um, I wonder if this is really a dream. And then I heard a sniffing sound, and I opened my eyes, and in the moonlight, I could see the mountain lion a few inches from my face. And
amazing.
I could see his whiskers, his tawny fur, and he was sniffing me. And I thought, I'm dead. He's
Mm,
gonna kill me.
yeah.
And my heart was beating so fast. I held my breath, shut my eyes, and and thought, hurry up and get it over with. Nothing happened. And nothing happened. And then I was so scared. I didn't open my eyes until way after the sun was up. And of course, on Red Rock, there's no tracks. But
Mm,
when I stuffed my sleeping bag into the bag, that pheromone smell, it was a male because I could
mm,
smell him. That's what I smelled. And it made the hair stand up on my
amazing.
skin. And so when the grandmother, one of the teacher aide's grandmother in the canyon told me what that meant, and she's everybody said he didn't kill you because you didn't move. They like things
Mm,
that move, and you were like paralyzed with fear, and that's what saved you. But the grandmother said, no, this is what is. She prophesied. People went to her for prophecy. She
mm,
said that the lion is your spirit guide. He came to you to give you his strength, perseverance, and courage, which you will need all through your life because you're going to face some very challenging obstacles in your life. And if you survive, you will have powerful medicine to give to the people.
mm.
She said that 55 years ago, and it was a theme throughout my whole rest of my life.
Yeah, amazing, amazing, amazing story, amazing book. So much insight, so much wisdom, so much beautiful sharing found within the pages of this book. It is called Medicine and Miracles in the High Desert. In it, the doctor shares her extraordinary experiences living among the Navajo people as a teacher, a healer, and a witness to spiritual phenomena. From surviving encounters, like you heard, with a mountain lion, to skinwalkers receiving miraculous healing through Navajo prayer, her story is a rare and intimate journey into one of the world's most spiritually rich cultures. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. I'm so happy to talk with you.
Happy to have you on the show. It was a great honor. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.
Thank